Tune in to Exposing Excellence with Roanoke Valley Leaders, a special summer series released every other week on the Dear Business Coach podcast. Join your producer and host, me, Elizabeth Walker, and I sit down with a remarkable Roanoke Valley leader every other week to uncover insights, successes, and strategies for achieving excellence in their field and yours. Don't miss out on these opportunities to learn from local leaders, elevate your own leadership style. Subscribe now and start exposing excellence with us. Welcome to Dear Business Coach, the podcast. My name's Elizabeth, coming to you from the Walker Consulting Works studio. Find one thing to move your business forward today. With conversations, spotlights, interviews, articles, and free resources. Listen, follow, and subscribe on social media, Dear Business Coach pages and groups. Dear Business Coach podcast. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. And don't forget Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. All it takes sometimes is one little thing to move your business forward today.
Okay. Yeah. So, and Liz Long, thank you so much for coming to the Dear Business Coach podcast today. This is a part of the limited summer series, Exposing Excellence with Roanoke Valley Leaders. And so today you're being featured as a Roanoke Valley leader. How are you today?
I'm well, and thank you for having me on your show today. It's quite an honor and a privilege to be considered one of the leaders in the area. So thank you so much for considering me for this piece at all.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm a little bit nervous because I want to make sure I do this interview justice. So what I'll do is ask you to introduce yourself here in a second, and I'll recap what I have on my notes for you. So what I do know is that you're the editor at the Roanoker Magazine. I'm familiar with you as the producer for the podcast at the Roanoker. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. So Leisure Media 360 in Roanoke, Virginia, your backyard. We produce the Roanoker Magazine, celebrating 50 years this year, in addition to other publications that others might not be aware about. For example, Blue Ridge Country travels across the 7 states, the Blue Ridge Mountains, and so we cover things like that. Great things to do, see pies on the windowsills type of thing. I'm also the editor of the Virginia Travel Guide, which is the statewide travel guide, so that when people want to visit Virginia, they have to read that editorial and learn all about the amazing things in our state. So I'm really proud as a native Virginian to bring people to our area and show all the wonderful things that are not just in Roanoke, but the state as a whole. And then there are other publications, Spirited Virginia for an ABC client. We've got Bride Book, our wedding publication. And then, of course, just several other things such as VBR Life or Vinton for our chamber partners. So it's a really true privilege to be able to, share all these amazing stories in our region, just for one little piece of what I do during the day.
Yeah. And so now while we're listening to you, is there somewhere in particular that I can find you or contact you or connect with you?
Sure. So I'm always available. You can always find me at theroanoker.com. My name's everywhere. But people are always welcome to email me. I want story ideas. I want, things to think about. It's really good to get out of my bubble and hear from other people in the community about other people and businesses and restaurants and stories that are out there. So I always encourage people to find me again at theroanoker.com. You can find our magazine on newsstands throughout the area. Of course, we have our podcast online available on Spotify and iTunes and all that, where we sort of lift the editorial from the issues and are really able to sort of round that out with really great, even more details that you don't necessarily read in print, because there are only so many words that you can fit onto a page. So it's a really wonderful opportunity to meet even more great people.
Right. And so podcasting, I know, is a little bit of a grassroots kind of production, right? So do you have a lot of help? Do you do it all by yourself? How did you all start the podcast at the Roanoker?
Well, I cheerlead my team for sure. They're amazing, and I've learned a lot from all of them. And so right now, I would say that the podcast is not solely, but mostly responsibility on my shoulders. I'm able to interview and write the scripts and produce the episodes, without too much help. So that's good. Once I figured out how to work, iMovie and technology. But that's been really great, a really good learning experience for me to learn not only new media, but to get back into podcasting. I have a radio background as well as newspaper and journalism. So it's a great opportunity for me to, instead of herding all the freelancer cats into their stories and deadlines, for me to get another opportunity to interview people directly myself. It's really exciting and getting back to my own kind of like heart at the story.
Well, that's a lot of fun for me to hear too. And I'm new at podcasting. And when I spoke with you before this interview, I did, that's when I learned that you have that background in radio and that interviewing is something that you're passionate about. So I have a lot to learn from you. One of the things that you did share with me as well are some other segments. 40 under 40 and 18 under 18. And it looks like on my notes here, you had shared with me that you're also part of that you also are into uplifting writers and the voices of writers. As an editor, that gives you a very specific role and access to leaders in the Roanoke area and beyond, as you said, in the state of Virginia too. I'm glad you said that too. So, so how do you start your conversations with your interviewees? How do you find and pick the folks that you would like to honor and highlight?
Sure. So to get real, started on the basics, every summer. So I plan out my editorial about a year in advance because we have departments and sections and features and things like that. Every issue of the Roanoker, specifically what I'm typically talking about when we talk about the magazine. So the Roanoker has specific themes of every issue. So for example, our newcomers and visitors guide, our women's issue, our best of Roanoke, just things like that. So that's a really great starting base for me to figure out where all these little stories might fit into a perfect issue, or if not, then where it might need to go otherwise. It's sort of like a big visual puzzle. Whenever we're paginating a new issue, it's literally like a big visual puzzle, and so I'm trying to figure out where all the pieces go. And so every summer I reach out not only to my team of freelance writers, but also photographers. Again, they are my team. They are so invaluable for their knowledge and their passion and their enthusiasm. And they are out there in the community, your friends and neighbors, they're learning about their neighbors and the stories that are out there. They're finding new restaurants or the great restaurants we haven't been to yet. They're finding new and great businesses currently existing that are doing really amazing things, not only for their clients, but for the community. So I really rely on their feedback to hear those stories that I might not otherwise while sitting in my little bubble in Wasena in the neighborhood. And so that's a really great way for me to branch out and hear from diverse voices as well. Inclusion is so important to me, which I know we've talked about. We might, go into a little bit depth later. But inclusion and diversity, it's such a wonderful, beautiful way to share our region, that we're not just one person or one story. It's so many more that kind of overlap and create this tapestry of really beautiful regional stories. And so every year when I collect those stories, my team and I, my editor-in-chief, my VP, my sales exec, we'll sit down and we'll start mapping out the year where we think a really great pitch should go into that. And then once we kind of get everything scheduled, sort of out issue by issue, I try to arrange like 3 to 4 features in addition to our regular departments or just needs, such as, for example, we know Top Docs is always in July, August. Best of Roanoke winners are always in May, June. So I build out around those major features that readers kind of come to expect over the last 50 years of that content. And so when it comes to sharing those stories, I give all the writers, here's your deadlines. It might be 10 months in advance and they have a long time to work on it. And so they are able to go out there and share those stories. But it's really hearing about their feedback and telling me about the amazing people. I'm just one person, and I am very privileged and lucky to know so many wonderful people, or at least be able to, in my position, reach out to people without feeling too awkward and being like, hey, I'd like to interview you. And for the most part, people are pretty receptive to it, barring any really schedule conflicts. And so the job has really given me insight into meeting some really incredible leaders. Anita Price is somebody I just interviewed for our best of, and she was such a powerhouse. And, John Carlin is somebody, actually is a great example. I grew up watching him on TV. I'm from Danville, right down the road. Roanoke was the big city to me. I loved it. I couldn't wait to live here. And so when I finally did move here, and a few years ago, I was able to interview John Carlin. And it was like this amazing thing, because I had not only watched him on TV, but I wanted to sit beside him on the news anchor desk. That's what I had originally wanted to do. I wanted to be in news. And so now I'm kind of news adjacent, and it's perfect because I'm able to tell these stories and maybe be less in the spotlight, not be, talked to at the grocery store quite as often as John Carlin might be. But, it was really amazing to be able to 20 years later come full circle and be able to interview him in that way. We've also been able to get great connections with friends at, Berglund Center, Dr. Pepper Park, Jefferson Center. I'm able to interview people like Kevin Costner or Bill Maher. That's been a really exciting kind of feather in my cap to be able to speak to those guys and really, give a sort of national level story in this local publication that we do. Every story that we tell is really trying to feature something that is going on in the world today, but on our local level and how that applies to our community and our citizens. So, for example, I'm not sure, by the time this comes out, July, August will probably be on newsstands. But we have a piece on AI and medicine. AI is so big right now, right? And like everybody's talking about it. How does it come down to the lower level in our community? How does Carillion or Lewis Gale, how are these medical facilities or healthcare people using AI to do that right here in our community? So you're taking a national story and really trying to bring it back down to our level so that we can understand and connect to that kind of thing.
Are you an executive or team leader looking to enhance your public speaking skills and leadership qualities? Join me, Elizabeth Walker, for a transformative full-day seminar on October 18th, 2024 at the beautiful Jefferson Center in downtown Roanoke, Virginia. As host and producer of the Dear Business Coach podcast and Walker Consulting workshops, I am thrilled to present this unique event featuring international comedian Clayton Fletcher and his Power of Laughter Masterclass. Clayton will share invaluable insights on what comedians know that all business people should know. Discover how to infuse humor and wit into your business presentation strategies and captivate and connect with your audience in a meaningful way. Don't miss out on this exclusive opportunity to learn from a seasoned stand-up comedian and apply his expertise to your professional journey. Contact the Jefferson Center box office in Roanoke, Virginia today to reserve your seats.
Well, right, exactly. And so there's some storylines there that I will be asking you about too, as far as why Roanoke Valley leaders are so important to talk about, because Roanoke, you say, Roanoke City, it's a charming city, but we have a huge spider web, if you will, of professionals who want to be here. But we're also kind of a quiet city. And so it's kind of like a secret gem, it feels like. And I feel that you understand that, and that you are, as you said, we're involved in very big national stories, and a lot of leaders around the country love this area. So we're still kind of a hidden little gem, aren't we? So I wanted, before I get off track, let's go back to the diversity and inclusion piece. With that, those are words, right? That is part of an industry. It's a lot of people put it on their profiles: DEI expert, DEI author, DEI, and that's part of my focus too. Is I want to find people like you who are super passionate about celebrating how diverse we are. And I'm going to say something a little bit odd here, but I could see how an outsider looking in might perceive Roanoke and Southwest Virginia as a place that is not, what diversity.
There are a lot of assumptions about the South in general, particularly about Southwest Virginia, that maybe there's a stereotype there, and our job is to sort of break that stereotype and show that it's not just that one assumption. Truly.
Yeah. So when you say that you are looking for and get fired up by the feedback, you are really not dependent on, but you're thriving on the feedback from the writers and the speakers. And I say speakers, but I think of writers, I think of voices, right? The voices in your network. And so how do you, as a leader, as an editor, as someone who really truly does have a lot of control over what gets published, and a lot of it might be through a lens of things that you're interested in, and you're obviously making a passionate, not just effort, but an admission that comes out of you to be connected with these voices. How do you prioritize? I know you just gave us a little visual of how you kind of put your planning together, but you to prioritize these stories, because there's so much content here, you can't squeeze it all in for fear of drowning somebody out, right? So how do you take all of this wonderful feedback from the voices in your network and figure out how to highlight them in the right places?
That's a great question. And there's really no easy answer. Like you said, there are so many stories. I assign things a year in advance. So when writers come to me in, let's say February, because they want to write a piece on so-and-so, I almost always have the rest of the year booked and there's no more space. So they'll have to wait a year in advance. And, most writers are pretty understanding about that. In terms of priority, I mean, that's really tough, right? It's not just about gender or race. It's also about age and lifestyle. There are so many ways to include diversity. So even if it's not necessarily, for example, we have a department called the Do You Know, and it's a column, it's in every issue, and we're picking one specific person to highlight an interview. And so that's done by several different writers so that I'm able to, we're not just sticking to one writer in one neighborhood or whatever. We have a big variety of that. But for example, if that doesn't work, or there's only 6 issues a year, so that's only 6 highlights a year. But for example, if there is a woman who is over 50, maybe she's a great candidate for our 20 over 50 inclusion. If there is a person in our 40 under 40, maybe that's how we highlight them, as opposed to later on in the year where it might not make sense or feel organic. Talking about the businesses and things like that, it's very interesting to see, how that kind of pans out, because sometimes it's about timing, right? Sometimes we think about a restaurant is a great example. We want to feature a restaurant, but they're not open yet. They still need a little more time before they open. So we have to shift things around. So sometimes we might flip a story that, was coming in one issue versus the other, simply because of the timing. And so it just depends on other people's schedules as well. We do depend on, other people making sure that they feel comfortable putting themselves out there in a story for readers to read, that they feel as ready as possible. We're ready to open the doors, instead of, oh my gosh, we're not open yet, we can't have the story come out, we're just not ready. And so that's something to always consider, is that, we want to tell the stories, but we want to tell stories that people are comfortable sharing. And so it is a lifestyle publication. That is the other thing to remember. Because it is so lifestyle, we're focused on homes and restaurants, and really feel good stories. We do tell serious stories, long form journalism that really dives deep into a story, whether it's homelessness or foster care or things like that. But we always want them to be uplifted. We don't have to have necessarily an enthusiastic tone to every single story, because they can be quite serious and very emotional. But I want readers to be able to feel that in the story, but walk away feeling good about what they've read. And quite frankly, I want them ready to learn and participate in whatever it is that they've just read about. And so finding those leaders in the community that do good things, that go out in the community, that are actively involved in making a better world for our everyday Roanokers, is really important to me. And that might ultimately be the takeaway. The highest priority is that no matter what you're going to read in the Roanoker, it's for the better of our community, and it's an education for our readers, because they might not have known something before they read that story. And now they think, I'm hoping that they have sort of a different mindset, that they've learned a little something and go, I want to make a difference in the community too. How do I do that? You'll reach out to that community leader we've talked about, or the organization or the business, and learn more about them and participate. There are so many amazing organizations in this region who are doing good things, that I don't want anyone to feel like they're alone in their endeavor. I might be passionate about something, but I don't have to go pick up trash on the side of the road alone if I don't want to. I can go join the Plockers, who are going from neighborhood to neighborhood, picking up everything off the sidewalks and taking care of our community. There are so many groups that I can participate in, and that they're going to welcome me with open arms. You know plenty of Roanokers. We are not shy, and we are ready to hug everybody into our group and welcome them. And that's one of the most wonderful things I can think about. I'm from Danville, but then after college, I lived in Nashville. So I've lived in the smaller city. I've lived in a really big city. It's sort of like Goldilocks. Roanoke is my perfect little middle space, where it's just the right size for me. I can make an impact daily in this community if I feel so empowered to do so. But on the off days I'm introverted, I can hide out too and just sort of, figure out what I'm going to do the next week to help somebody. And so, sorry, long story short, the prioritization is interesting and it's complex because you really have to think about the people in this community who are doing good things. And that is always my goal. Ultimately, the bottom line is I want to showcase the good things about this community. And that's really kind of where it starts and trickles down.
Yes. Well, and it's evident by also just the people that are highlighted. I mean, it's we're talking on exposing excellence with Roanoke Valley leaders, and what does leadership mean, right? Well, leadership is exposing the excellence of your team. And when I look at the folks that you've chosen for highlighting it, just really quickly perusing through the website, through the Roanoker website, there are professionals who are staff members at grocery stores. There are professionals who are volunteers. And so there's not the word executive in their title. Like what you just said, they are being highlighted because they are community leaders through their involvement and their passion. And you are specifically writing a bio, or the Roanoker Magazine's bio for them on the website isn't, well, I went to Harvard and then I moved to Roanoke. It is every Saturday afternoon you can find me in the produce section at my job talking to customers, and so that is very compelling.
Well, and I think it shows the executives, the CEOs, the people who are in charge are doing amazing things. Like I want to feature them, they're the leaders in our valley. But as you just said, everyday people can be leaders in their own right too. They don't have to have a big, heavy title or a large, paycheck to be able to make a difference. Every small little ripple in the pond, fashions out into what other people can learn from and do. And so I love that you've pointed that out, because that in itself is inclusion, right? That is a way. It's not, again, just about age or race or gender. It's also about lifestyle or occupation. That why can't I make a difference just because I don't have this big title and I don't win awards and I don't do this? That doesn't mean I can't go out and find a group or find friends or just go out and do something that I am passionate about doing and finding my own sort of little niche in this area, which is really exciting. I think there's a place for everyone here. They just sort of have to figure out what that is for them and find it. And chances are there's already a group or a welcoming, open arm to welcome you into that group.
Yeah, so let me check my time here. Okay, let's see. So I wanted to make sure I don't keep you longer than I'm allowed to. So you have also, make sure I'm looking at my notes here before I forget to ask you to tell me, you also have you're also self-published. And did you say that you were recognized by USA Today for your self-publishing?
I did. In 2016, I was very privileged to be on the USA Today bestsellers list. I have released 21 books under my name and a pen name. Typically, they're young adult fantasy or sweet romance, and they're actually around town. You can find them in Book No Further. You can find them in the comic book store, B&D Comics. And so you can actually find them also in your local high schools. I've made sure to drop off copies at all the high schools around the area. Not only to provide a book for people to read, provide a fun story, but to show other writers of all ages, but particularly younger writers, that they can do this too. I self-published. I started in 2012, so I've been doing it for a while. And it's been amazing to see the growth of that industry as a whole and sort of the turnaround that self-publishing is no longer this thing where people go, I don't know if that's a really good book. And now there are really amazing books that we're just sort of, as the author, we're taking charge of and putting on the shelves for readers because we believe in them and we don't want to wait around anymore. We don't want to wait around any longer to put it on a shelf for people. And so that's been a really amazing privilege and highlight to be able to do that. I'm the previous director of Roanoke Author Invasion. I was bringing in 70 authors from all over the country and readers from all over the country to visit and meet and greet. And so we've talked about this again. I'm able to meet writers from all over. I'm the director of the Roanoke Regional Writers Conference. And so that is bringing in people to Hollins every year and learning from other writers of all sorts of backgrounds and genres. And so I think I told you this on the phone when we were talking previously, but my job essentially, whether it's the writers conference, the author invasion, even my job as editor, my job is to put good people in a room with other good people. And it is such an incredible honor to be able to do that. It is something that as I get older, I only believe more strongly that that's what I'm here for. Is to connect amazing people and to let people know that there are others out there who want to work together on a project or a thought or whatever it is. And so to be able to step back and see new writers and experienced writers mingling and sharing and all that, it's such an honor to be able to do that, because it just means betterment for other people and bringing joy into people's lives. And that's a really amazing. I feel very lucky to be able to be the conduit for that.
Well, I can tell that you are this is your I'm looking for the right word. You get energy from your job. You are excited every day, and it's clear that this is not a job for you, right? This is a lot. Well, you said lifestyle for the magazine, but it is a lifestyle to be want to connect with other people who have things to say and want to make sure that message is experienced in a way that benefits everybody, right? Not just
Let me so real quick, my thing is I'm not going to let anybody sit at a lunch table alone. Many of my writers have heard me yell at them, like we're in a group and somebody will sit up here and I get over here. That's not what we do here. We sit at a table together, or I'm basically forcing people to make friends with each other, and that's not the way to go about doing it. But I was that kid in school. I could not see somebody sitting by themselves at a lunch table and let them continue to sit there alone if that's not what they wanted. I'm bringing them into the fold, whether they like it or not, dragging, kicking, and screaming. And it's something that, again, that's what I've been doing since I was a kid. So it makes total sense now that, 25, 30 years later, I'm doing that for my occupation, for my job, that I'm able to bring good people together and just say, here's good person, make something wonderful for our area. Just go for it. Do it. I support you wholeheartedly.
okay. Well, that's fantastic. That makes a lot of sense, and I could only imagine being in class or in the lunchroom with you. That would.
Lee Hunsaker called me a lovely aggressive force, and I feel that's the biggest compliment that she could have given me, because it's pretty accurate.
A lovely aggressive force, right?
That on my resume and hope that people understand what that means.
Okay, so if I want to suggest a story, if I want to contact you, if I want to find out if there are lunches or groups that I can participate in, then I can reach out to you, Liz Long, at the roanoker.com. Is that right?
Yeah. So you can go to the roanoker.com, and they've got an about page where you can find me on editorial, or you can always email me at llong, LLONG, at leisuremedia360.com.
Well, fantastic. I hope that we get to talk again very soon. And is there anything I've forgotten that we should make sure we remind listeners of?
No, just to do good things. I'm also a board member on the Jefferson Center. So if you love great jazz music for a really unique show at a premier venue, go to the Jefferson Center. We really love having you there, and it's really important as a historic building, and something that is part of the city for a long time. So we're really proud to feature that. Again, connecting good people with other good people.
Absolutely. So we'll be talking again real soon. Liz, thank you so much for being on the Dear Good Business Coach podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today. My name's Elizabeth, coming to you from the Walker Consulting Work Studio in Floyd, Virginia. This has been an episode of Dear Business Coach.